Well, I finally managed to acquire a Vox UL730. I have a lot of Beatle amps, but this is probably the rarest amp that I have. It's the hardest one to find. And I'll talk about all of that later. But first I want to talk about Paperback Writer when I was trying to get the sound on Paperback Writer through this amp. I had originally thought that it would just be a simple matter of pushing the fuzz circuit on this, and then I would have Paperback Writer, just a little treble, a little bass. It's not really the way it worked out at all. The distortion is not variable. That means that, it is what you get. You can't make more fuzz, you can't make less fuzz. I realized that, okay, it's a transistor hybrid amp, and maybe you don't use the distortion circuit, but you just push the amp, and you'll still get a little bit of that transistor underneath. And that's really what I did, because the distortion circuit is far too distorted for Paperback Writer. For the settings on Paperback Writer, I was in the normal channel. The volume was between 7 and 8. The treble was between 8 and 9. The middle was about 6. The bass was at 0. The basement has a great breakup that is also kind of clear. But it doesn't have, when you're hitting the G on Paperback Writer, the low G on the 3rd fret, it doesn't have that transistor underneath rumble, which this does. And so for that reason alone, I think that that's what Paperback Writer was. I think it wouldn't have been the UL730, but it would have been the UL7120, because they weren't using, as far as I know, I've only seen pictures of the Vox UL7120 on Revolver. We all kind of imagine what it was and think we know what it is. But when you actually have the instruments and you have the amps and the signal chains, because I ran this through the Red 47, that's really where the proof in the pudding is. And so it was definitely cool to be able to actually get really close to Paperback Writer using the UL730. And a shout out to Ellie Rosen 1391, who first pointed out that he wasn't hearing the solid state sound on my 1965 Casino Plays the Beatles video on Paperback Writer. And at the time, I didn't agree with him. I thought it was probably the Bassman because it sounded really good when I did it on the Bassman. So props to you, Ellie Rosen 1391. You were right. And having both the Bassman and the UL730 really brought that to light. I'm in the vibrato channel. So in this vibrato channel, you have volume, treble, middle, bass. And you also have speed and depth. To turn the vibrato on, you hit the V on the pedal. And you can adjust the speed and the depth, of course. I can't really show you anything about the reverb on the amp because the reverb doesn't work, and it's because they had these cartridges because they went cheap on the reverb on these amps, and the cartridges were very fragile, and it was a terrible sounding reverb anyhow. Maybe I'll get it fixed someday, but it's really not important to me because the amp sound is more important. So I have the UL730 dialed for Taxman. I'm in the normal channel. The distortion isn't in that channel, it's in the vibrato channel. And you get that Taxman sound. And I'm using a Fender Custom Shop Beatle Specs Strat in Sonic Blue, of course. So the UL stands for Underwriters Laboratories, which is still around today. They check the safety of electrical items. During the Sgt. Pepper sessions, McCartney can be seen here playing bass through a Vox UL730. You can tell it's a 730 because of the number of knobs on the right. The Vox UL430, which was made for bass, would have had 4 knobs on both sides. You can see that there are 5 knobs on the right, making this a 730. Each channel has a boost switch which adds highs to the signal. I definitely noticed it more when I plugged in the bass. You could hear the effect in the sound. The speakers in these amps are usually Celestion T1088s. These aren't the original speakers in my amp, but they were sourced, and one is from 1965 and one is from 1972. There are tons of pictures of the Beatles using the Vox UL730 on Sgt. Pepper. They're very rare amps. There's probably only about 25 to 30 on the planet. There's a whole story that people didn't like them when they came out. They returned them to Vox for better sounding amps. Vox took the returns and then destroyed them. There were only a little over 100 made, and I think it was 76 were actually destroyed. My source on this is the Vox showroom. All in all, the Vox UL730 is a really great amp. Certainly gets the Beatles sounds for sure. Hope you enjoyed the tour of it. Don't forget to subscribe and like. It really motivates me if I see that people are enjoying what I'm doing. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you soon.